Of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. For those of you who don't know me, because I haven't met everybody yet, I'm BB Casey, and I'm one of the selectmen, and so I'm calling it to order tonight until we get around to electing a chair and a co-chair, and then you all will take it from there. Okay, so I guess we'll start with introductions. It's on the agenda here. So we can just go around. We can start with Erica and just sort of how long you've been in town, what's your interest in the committee, that kind of a thing, and I guess that's a good place to start. Yep, press that button so that you get a little green light there.
There we go. Can you guys hear me? Beautiful. So I'm Erica Brown. I grew up here. I think my parents moved here when I was two and a half, and so I grew up right on Rowell Hill, just down the road, and was here all the way through graduating Kearsarge. Best childhood ever. Went away for the last 20 years and, went to school, did my thing. I've been working and was really fortunate to have the opportunity to come back as the executive director of the Outing Club. I joined the team in February of 23, so I've been here just over a year, and it's been fantastic. In that year, Russ reached out to me, and we had a lovely coffee. And so I've gotten a little bit involved, very little, not to the extent that I should. And then he invited me to join this committee or put my application in, and here I am. So thrilled to be here and learn from all of you and hopefully get some good work done.
Excellent.
Yeah.
My name is Grant Smith. I've been in town for about 10 years. We moved from the southern New Hampshire area. I've got 2 kiddos in the Kearsarge district. And my role is kind of unique in that I run what's called the Pleasant Pedal. It's kind of an informal gathering of adults, and the focus is on kids, really, that ride with my son's age and my daughter's age, grade school kids. And we ride around Pleasant Lake, and it's a very family, fun kind of gathering all through the summer. At the end of the ride, they get to go swimming. We have a little barbecue after, and it's a great way to start the week on a Monday night. So we get typically about 20 to 25 riders, and there's a lot of interest in town. Mainly, I kind of focus on the bike stuff more than the pedestrian stuff, but about maybe seeing what options there are for additional trails or some kind of bike routes that would be more kid-friendly, family-friendly. A lot of the, roads in town are very narrow and hard to maneuver for cars and bikes. So that's, kind of my interest and kind of why I'm here. And Russ has been on a Pleasant Pedal with us, and we were part of the Hospital Days Parade, so we're making a name for ourselves, and hopefully, my representation here will be helpful in that aspect. So thank you for having me.
I'm Woody Cannerday. We've had a property on Old Main Street for about 20 years and moved here permanently in 2017. I'm an avid cyclist. I've been all over the place. New London is a great cycling town. It's phenomenally well located, and there are great things to do from here, but there are safety issues. Which I've become more and more aware of over time. And so I'm a big advocate for people who are road cyclists using the reverse radar that's available. People don't know about it, but it's a very handy device for safety. Very keenly aware of places that are less safe that you can't avoid, like Pleasant Street and Main Street. And I talk to people periodically about the walking they do around town, and there's feelings about it. There's a desire for better, for more improved. And then there's the perpetual issue, of course, is where's the money going to come from to do these things? So that's going to be an interesting challenge for any of these questions. I joined with Russ when he invited me on to the coalition, the New London Coalition for Bike and Walk. So we've had some discussions over the last year or so, and Russ has been a great leader on that. So that just piqued my interest, and I said yes when he asked me to volunteer, just to fill in my volunteer form. So here I am.
I'm Judy Herrera, and I've lived in town for about 30 years, raised my children here, taught in the Kearsarge Middle School for 25 years. I'm one of the women who walk the roads every day. There's a crew of us at different times, and I work part-time at the bookstore, so I have a lot of contact with community members on a regular basis, those who are walking those or cycling, and have just casual conversations, and want to help improve in whatever way, expanding bike trails if possible, and I don't know if we can expand access to walking areas for us. But first committee I've been on town, so hopefully I'll come back.
I'm Emily Campbell. I've moved here from Colorado 52 years ago. I grew up in Connecticut, went to school in Denver, came here with my first husband who had a house on Lake Sunapee. Taught 4th grade, taught 8th grade. I've been selling real estate for 45 years. I'm an alternate on the planning board, was on the school district, school board for 12 years, chairman for 6. What else can I say? I walk all the time. I just did a half marathon in Rye on Sunday. I love to bike. I've got 2 grandkids that I can't keep up with. I finally had to break down and buy an e-bike so I could keep up with them. But it's great to get exercise and see people, meet people, and enjoy the town and what it has to offer. So that's why I'm delighted to be on this committee.
I'm Don Eberly. M's got me beat. I've only worked and played in New London since 1980. So, and have a real interest in biking, hiking, admiration for our Conservation Commission and the trails that they've maintained and provided for us. I guess my biggest issue is in June of 2011, one of the clubs that I ride with was hit by an impaired driver, taking out Bob Satterley, who was killed, Mike Feeney, who was incapacitated. So I've been on the roadside and seen some of that carnage, and I really am committed to trying to do whatever we can to prevent things like that from happening in this wonderful community. I take challenge on saying that New London is a great place to ride from. It happens to be the 2nd highest town in New Hampshire. So the ride out is always good, but the ride back gets a little bit testy. And I got off my bike about an hour ago.
Yeah, I'm Russ Moore. My wife and I moved here approximately 5 years ago from Southern Connecticut. I was involved with a river trail association in the town that I lived in Connecticut. Continued my interest in biking and walking when I moved to New London. I am an avid walker, hiker, and cyclist. I helped form a small volunteer group of the Bike Walk Coalition, and in collaboration with the town of New London and the police department, we have made some modest improvements in terms of accommodations such as share the road signs and bike racks, and want to build on some of those small steps in terms of looking at improving walking and biking access and safety for people of all ages and abilities.
My name is Ed Condict, and I was born here in New London and have been here for a number of years since then. I've biked, hiked, and now walk, and I guess my immediate awareness is on the sidewalks, but it would be great to have additional bike opportunities both on road and in the trails if we can possibly do so. At this point, I'm really here to learn what the possibilities are and hopefully advance an agenda that'll accomplish some of those things.
Great. Well, just a quick on me. I was born here too. Ed and I grew up together, and I left for a bit and came back. But I also have a 91-year-old father who still lives here, and he still rides his bike. And he can't ride around here. He has to drive down to Keyser to take his bike off his car and ride on the flat part of Keyser. So I don't know if we'll have anything ready for him, but I would love to see an area around here where our people can ride safely, like you said. But the sidewalk, how this all came about was actually from our friend Mr. Bowers here in the audience, who you may know, that walks up and down Main Street every single day quite a bit. And his concern for the condition of the sidewalks, which I think we've all been hearing about for many years. We've put money aside for fixing the sidewalks, but we've held off on the Main Street part because of the water main project, which I'll also talk about tonight and give you all an update on what's happening there. So the selectmen, Bob approached us and asked if we could start a group like this to really focus in on the sidewalks. And in talking amongst the three of us, we thought, yes, we think that's a great idea, but we'd also like to have this group. We didn't want this to be a one-year project. We want this to stick around and focus on the mobility and the walkability and the rideability and the hiking and all of that, because it just benefits all of us in this town, everybody who lives here. So that's how we got here. So the water main project, you've probably seen the signs up. It's starting next week. It's starting the first phase from Squires Lane down to Pleasant Street. Is that right? Correct? And it's going in three phases. They're expecting 2 months for each phase. So approximately a 6-month project going all the way into the fall. So as regards to sidewalks, we've been told, and correct me if jump in anytime. And for those of you who don't know, this is Kim Hallquist.
I'm just here as an observer.
Is that what they've told us is with regards to the sidewalks that we shouldn't do anything for a year afterwards. So we can't even start any work on the Main Street sidewalks until next summer, spring.
They have to test the pipes after that installation.
Right. So I think that if anybody has any questions for me on the committee and what we expect from the committee, please let me know. Otherwise, we can move on to the next agenda item. And I thank you all for being here. We really depend on the volunteers, so it's greatly appreciated.
Are you going to go over this, or is that what you already did?
I guess I already did that. Everybody got the document that we created that formed the committee. If you want me to review it, or if anybody has any questions, it's pretty brief.
Good.
Yep. All right, Kim's going to review the right to know. That's that. Yeah.
So have any of you been on a town committee in New Hampshire yet? Okay. Emily has. So Emily will be your guide. How's that? But what we follow here in New Hampshire, you might have heard of the right to know law. And it is a law that requires governmental bodies, of which you're one, you're a town committee, to do all of your business in public, like we're here right now. So it'll be important for you folks not to be having email chains that go to each other. You can have an email saying, can you meet such and such a day, or maybe your chair will send you out some material to review, and that's okay. But debates and discussion about the work you're doing needs to happen in a meeting, and that meeting needs to be posted at least 24 hours in advance. We try to have it posted more in advance, like this meeting, what was it, set a couple of weeks ago, right? We try to do it in as much in advance as we can so the members of the public can come here if they want. They'll know about it. Tonight we are recording it, and we are trying to record all meetings, and we'll continue to try. So long as you have your meeting here, we can record it. Now there may be times when the only night that you're all available, this room is not available. You might have to meet at Sid Crook, which is in the town office. If that happens, it won't be recorded, but we'll try. I would urge you to try to meet here. When you decide on meetings, whoever your chair is, that person can email the office and we'll tell you if the room's available. If you can schedule some meetings in advance, that's handy too. So good for you folks, so you'll know when your meeting is. And we can also reserve the space because it goes pretty quick. There's lots of meetings that are held, so it would be good if you did it in advance. You can meet at any time of the day you want. Sundays are out, but you can meet on Saturdays, evenings, during the day, whatever works for you guys. One of you needs to agree to take minutes Just basic, they don't have to be very detailed, just kind of memorialize what you did. We will post them online so the public, again, can understand what you've been doing, what you're working on. Let's see, anything else about the right to know law? The main thing is just make sure you do things in public. You might go on a site visit. Let's say this whole group decided to walk down Main Street. If you did it as a group, then we would post that as a meeting. So people would know you're going to meet wherever, and maybe you're going to walk all the way down the street. That's perfectly fine. You can do that. And then somebody would just say, we took a tour and looked at the sidewalks on wherever. That's perfectly fine. Now, the meeting needs to be, if you're going to have a meeting, a business meeting, it needs to be a quorum of your board. So you have 7 members and 2 alternates, so the quorum would be 4, right? That's the majority of 7. If somebody can't make it, one of the 2 alternates may be seated as a regular member. The chair will decide which one it is to sit for the absent member. But you can do business so long as there's 4 of you present. Is that it? Any questions?
In terms of posting information on the town website.
Yep.
That might be useful to the public.
Yep.
I'm not talking about recording our proceedings, but just general information about bike and walk safety and information like that. How could that be arranged, and who needs to review and approve that?
So you would send that to Cara in the office. She's the administrative assistant. She knows what the rules are. We wouldn't put things in about private businesses. You know, we can't advertise private businesses, obviously, with the government. But information about where walking trails, bike trails, things like that, bike safety information. If you had an event, let's say you were going to have something special here, you could publish that. We don't advertise for private businesses. Lots of organizations want to put information on the town website, but we don't. Because if we do it one for one, we have to do it for everybody. So, and Cara knows those rules. If you're unsure, you can always ask her. She'd know. But you just send it to her, she'll post it. There'll be a web page. I think there might already be a web page.
That's what I was just going to look for. So there already is a web page for this committee. So you've got a blank space there that
Right.
you can put whatever you want on.
Yeah,
there.
your meeting
As long
minutes.
as it's okay to put, Cara
Yeah.
will,
Right.
review it, but yeah.
Meeting minutes will be there, agendas will be there,
Yeah.
videos, if we have videos, will be there, and resources, yes. Yep. When in doubt, I know Emily has been involved, no. I won't put you on the spot, Emily, that's okay. But if you have any questions, any one of you individually can email me if you have any questions. Cara, who is the one who will be posting minutes and things like that, she can help you as well. But happy to help anybody else. And you may need help from other department heads. Adam Ricker, who's our planner, Public Works people, police and fire, they have a lot of information, and there may be times when you want to invite them in to talk to you. Individually, you could talk to them, but you should really do all of your work as a group, so everybody knows. I mean, if you had a question of the police chief, you could certainly ask her. Let's say you were doing research on something. You can educate yourselves as well, but I would encourage you to share what you learn with the entire group. Good? Anybody else have any questions? Right to know law, we're very picky about it. We want to make sure everybody in the public gets to know what you're doing. And that'll be good too, because hopefully they'll get, because there'll come a time when you'll want to go to the budget committee or to town meeting, and it would be good if people knew the work that you're doing. Good?
Good.
In terms of the budget process, if we want to submit a request of any kind for the budget, which I guess would be 2026, is it?
Fiscal year 26, yeah.
Would we, and I don't have a specific proposal in mind, but would we work with existing town departments in terms of a specific kinds of project? In other words, it might fall within Public Works or whatever, but is that what you would recommend in terms of the protocol?
Yeah, so if it was something that fell under Public Works, let's say the to build a new sidewalk somewhere. That would definitely fall under Public Works. So you would talk to, well, it's going to be Sam. By the time budget comes around, it'll be Sam. So you would talk to him. If there was something you wanted to do, like maybe you want to have money for training, maybe you want to, get some research materials or whatever, you would put that in yourself. And what I do is, near the end of the summer, early August or end of the summer, I send out an email to all departments and committees and say, here's the deadline for submitting requests for budgets. And then you can submit it. But if it is a police or fire or public works thing, it goes in their budget. Or you might say, recommend, say, putting more money into the sidewalk capital reserve or creating a totally new capital reserve. You could do that as well.
So typically when we start these committees, right at the beginning, we elect or you all elect a chair and a co-chair. I think Russ has had a couple conversations with folks to see if anybody's interested. So if anybody's interested, they should speak up now, or you can have a conversation about it if you like, Russ.
No, it's totally at the discretion of the group. I did meet, and just in the spirit of transparency, I did meet with Ed and Emily to explore their interest in serving as chair or vice chair. And we didn't reach a definitive conclusion. But Emily indicated that she might consider playing some type of leadership role. If I misspoke, you can.
That's certainly not a chair. Tables are easier.
Well, if anybody wanted to make a nomination for chair, they can do that.
I would like to nominate Russ to be the chair of the committee.
Second.
As his work on the coalition and helping to get this group organized.
Okay, any discussion other than that? Okay, do you want to vote, take a vote on Russ Moore for chair? Everybody in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Okay, anybody opposed? There you go. There you go, Russ. You can take over.
Do you accept the nomination?
After a pause, I'll accept,
Okay.
I would appreciate a nomination for vice chair, and my suggestion is Emily.
Okay, any other nominations for vice chair?
Well, is there anyone else here who has the time? I don't have as much time as I'd like, but if there's someone else who has the time and the interest and the, whatever we need to do for this, I'd be more than glad to go in that direction.
Okay, there you go. All in favor of Emily for vice chair?
Aye.
All right. There we go. All right. Russ, you can take over the meeting now that you're chair.
Well, I did ask him whether or not we should prepare an agenda, and for this first meeting, we decided not to prepare a formal agenda. So I did not come prepared with,
Sure.
a structured kind of discussion, but I will give a couple of updates. So as Baby alluded to, I did have a meeting with Bob Harrington, and I have been meeting with Bob relatively regularly over the course of several years around bike and pedestrian issues, but in the context of work for the Bike Walk Coalition, which is a private nonprofit charity. And discussed with him the water main project, and obviously the water district has jurisdiction over that, and the police department will be obviously assisting with the traffic flow. So that really wasn't a public works discussion. But I did speak to him about what projects could be considered in terms of improving sidewalks, and by no means did he make any kind of commitment on the part of the town or Public Works, but he did, I basically said if you had to prioritize 5 projects that were not Main Street, because we cannot address Main Street at least in the next 2 years, what projects would you consider that would be fairly, I don't want to say easy, but would be achievable in terms of optimal cost benefit for the town. I think we'll talk about that at our next meeting in more depth, because I really don't want to get into specific discussions about street segments or intersections at this meeting. But he was of the opinion that there are a number of initiatives that the town could pursue that would have clear benefit to residents, and most of those are in the downtown area, but they're not, they're either extensions of what we consider as downtown main streets, or they're very contiguous to Main Street. I did speak to him about a proposal that was developed by the Bike Walk Coalition, which was a downtown business bike walk loop, and several of the projects that he was looking at would actually be connected to the downtown business bike walk loop. And if for people who are not familiar with that, I have shared with you that on the New London Bike Walk Coalition website, there's a resources page, and you can get a lot of information about what we've done so far in the town. And so we'll have further discussion on that, but just for the record, the downtown business bike loop concept was presented to the Planning Commission, to the Recreation Commission, to the Citizens Advisory Commission, and they actually formally voted to approve the concept, not the specific route and not funding the project. And I won't go into a lot of detail on that now, but basically it's contiguous to downtown, and it's optimizing streets that are not as heavily trafficked as Main Street, but are relatively flat. We'll have a chance to talk about that in more depth. So I think that's one of the things that I think we want to discuss further in terms of infrastructure projects. In a conversation with the Board of Selectmen at a previous meeting, in terms of the formation of this group, there were several comments that I thought were germane and useful to us. And one of them was that the composting kind of solid waste committee was an example of how a committee can function very effectively. If you had an opportunity to either participate in the composting project or you're aware of it, basically that committee did a survey to identify potential customers, like who would actually spend the time sorting their kitchen trash and committing to a pilot program. So a key piece of that was doing, quote, market research, like what is the need and how could the town meet the need. And then a second piece of it was a survey to identify the receptivity of people in town to the project. And generate a lot of comment, discussion, which kind of enriched the overall direction of the project in terms of the discussion. And then they identified what are the resources either in the community or outside the community to actually make the composting program work. And I'm sure Bibi and Kim are familiar with this, but basically they identified a vendor who would provide the service at the transfer station. And so I think what Bill was saying on the select board meeting was it was a fairly straightforward, efficient committee that sort of focused, had a singular focus, and had measured outcomes and has had success. And obviously, it's improved the environment because we're not throwing our kitchen trash away, and it's hopefully saving some money for the town in terms of it's not going into garbage that's carted away. So I did point out to Bill that when you're dealing with the complexities of infrastructure, like changing the physical environment, it's a lot more nuanced than a composting program. Not to say that that doesn't have value. So the point I was making is that a lot of what that committee has done, I think, is going to be useful to us. But we have to understand and appreciate that the work in this area requires a great deal of persistence and patience, and we need to be very clear about the knowledge base we have and the knowledge base that we have to seek other places, whether that be, the Planning Commission, the town planner, independent resources. So what I hope for the committee is that we will develop some specific and actionable items and really focus on that. The group has to really decide the direction that we take the work. That's not the role of one person. It's really the group that will decide. But I hope that, and I've talked to Bibi about this a little bit, I hope that we will think about envisioning our work in terms of some time frames. So for, let's say, 1 to 3 years, can we develop like a demonstration project in this town, which is how walkers and bicyclists and motorists could coexist in a particular segment of the road or a particular intersection or a particular neighborhood, and really focus our efforts in trying to develop that demonstration project, which I think will garner public attention and support for additional work that we could undertake. So that would, from my point of view, that would be sort of the 1 to 3 year time frame. And then I think in terms of the downtown business bike loop, which is the idea is to build a network downtown of roads and paths and bike lanes, whatever, that would make the downtown area attractive and enjoyable for people of all ages and abilities. As you know, for example, the Twin Pines Affordable Housing Project is, with 60 units, is coming online, is being developed. There's the Continuum long-term assistance facility that's in the same area. I mean, that's an area that we might consider looking at because there's going to be increased density of pedestrians, motorists in that area. So, I mean, there's several different specific areas that we could focus on. Again, this is at the committee's discretion. But that I see as like the downtown business loop or some version of that, because I don't own that, and that's not a proprietary name. It could be a totally different kind of concept. But I think that is something that might be achievable for the town in, let's say, a 3 to 5 year kind of time frame. But what I hope, like in 10 years, and I'm not saying this committee is in any way charged with this responsibility, that the town will think about a robust and vibrant network that will tie all of our beautiful trails. I think we have 27 miles of trails with, bike lanes and sidewalks, and we will have, signage on the trailheads, so, someone can bike to the trailhead and secure their bike, and there will be, at certain areas of town, facilities for, people to rest on the trail, and some directional interpretive signs that are both historical and directional, because the town has the most important thing, and that is, it has a lot of just aesthetic beauty, which draws people here. So, with the baseline we have in terms of the baseline map, a lot of towns don't have. We have a town which, at least in the downtown area, is relatively flat, and most New England towns don't have that. It's like really steep hills right even downtown. So those are the kinds of things I've been thinking about, and it seems somewhat daunting, to be honest with you. It seems somewhat overwhelming, kind of like, where do you start? I think that's something that we all have to sort of parse out and figure out, I think based on the community survey that was done, we had over 350 people respond to a community survey. There is both the interest and the expectation that the town is going to take some specific actions in this regard. I think that's fair to say. And certainly that's true of a lot of conversations I have with people. There will be other people who don't bike or walk and will certainly have penetrating questions about why the town should be spending resources or expertise to address the complete streets approach. But the other foundation we have is the master plan clearly articulates that the town should prioritize improving roadways and streets for bikers and walkers and integrate into the planning a complete streets approach. So, we have a lot of the basic pillars that I think are useful in terms of moving forward. I think we have a foundation, and in my interactions with the Board of Selectmen and with Kim, with the town leadership and with the police department, I think there is a willingness, a receptivity to actually not just have discussion, but to invest time, expertise, and resources in trying to address some of these issues. So, but I've certainly said more than enough, and I'd like to hear from other people.
So Russ, first, thanks very much for getting this organized. Oh, thanks. So again, Russ, thanks very much for getting this organized and the town accepting this as an advisory committee. I think it's incredibly timely when we look at the growth of the town in terms of population, our demographics, the effects of the pandemic, and the fact that so many people are now getting outside, exercising, and finding out how terrific that is. The other thing is, it's not unique to this town. It's going on in the state where the Department of Transportation is really pushing the idea of the complete street.
concept and securing funds both through the state as well as federal funds. So I think we can all come up with a wish list, a dream of what we'd like to envision, hopefully in less than 10 years' time. But one of the important things, as you point out, Russ, is when we're talking about physical changes to the community in which we live, the bottom line is going to be finances. So I think one of the paramount roles that we should fill is seeking out those grant monies that are available. There are so many projects that could be funded with grants, and that money remains on the table because no one's done the background work to really seek out what's available. So I would like to see that on the agenda, or as a group responsibility to do the research and find out, gosh, if we can come to the town with a boatload of money, it sure will give us a stronger voice. Enough said.
Thank you, Russ. Thank you, Don, as well. I guess some questions more as background. The master plan that you referred to, I did take a quick try to find it, but I'm interested in what the relevant sections are in the master plan that refer to, and if they say the words complete streets, because it has a particular meaning, I guess. And then related to what you're saying, Don, I think, chicken or egg question. Do you need the vision first in order to then figure out what kind of funding is available, or is there a general survey that one can take to get an idea of what's available? In other words, what should come first, right? Should we have a general scoping that will tell us how high is up, if you will, right? Or should we say, hey, there's a vision that can go in a particular direction? I'm thinking of Warner, for example, which has a quite major project underway, as I understand it, and has federal money that got Manny Custer involved and so forth, I think. And I think it's a multi-million-dollar project to just create a bike path that's going to be going through that underpass to get people into the downtown area in what is otherwise a difficult way to get through. And I don't know how do you go about doing that, or you have the idea first and then. So I'm a neophyte on this, so it's a.
I would say the planning piece is critical, and I think that comes first. The planning and the public input comes first, I believe, which is, there's the Regional Planning Commission. That's a resource for us. BB mentioned New Hampshire Plans is an entity that the town of Sunapee is using, and they're able to secure extensive planning resources through this New Hampshire Plans initiative. So I think that's a piece that's important. There are many steps in the process to an infrastructure plan, and I'm not a transportation engineer, but basically one first step is doing a feasibility study using the Regional Planning Commission's resources or other resources. And I did explore for the downtown business bike loop, the viability of finding some initial funding for a feasibility study. A feasibility study is not a shovel-ready engineering plan. In other words, it doesn't have blueprints. But a feasibility study sort of tests the basic assumptions or the basic approach to a particular transportation challenge. And it also is an important piece in terms of funding, that you need that kind of documentation in order to ensure funders that you have the right level of expertise and analysis to the problem. So I don't know if I've answered your question, Woody, but it's not a chicken or an egg, it's an omelet kind of thing, where there's sort of a combination of a planning process and a funding research process. They sort of have to be done in parallel.
One approach we might take to this, we spend a lot of time in East Burke, Vermont, and that's kind of the mountain bike capital of the Northeast, or was North America for a while. They've done a very good job of cohabitating motorists and bikes and businesses. And I'm thrilled that Russ has already been talking with the the town committees about bike business loop. I think just from my own experience, one approach to that might be to get bikes off the road. We have 1 block away from Main Street is the elementary school. We've got, the Kearsarge fields have really neat trails that are already in place. Spring Ledge Farm has some fantastic trails that are already behind it that we use, for the Halloween walk and things like that. Maybe instead of trying to, our Main Street is very narrow. Maybe instead of trying to make space for bikes and pedestrians there, that we just move them 1 block off of Main Street. Vermont is probably a model for working with landowners and getting, trails that interconnect with, town municipality access and business access. Maybe we kind of take that approach that, we have a large walking loop area that maybe goes around the elementary school somehow, and then can, span off there into bike trails. And, from a cost perspective, that might keep things, to a relatively decent, cost-wise. And then, we don't have to, reconfigure our whole downtown or try to put a bike lane in. I mean, people can barely park on Main Street as it is. So maybe just getting people off Main Street. I know that, with the business loop, the business is a focus. Because there's definitely incentive to keeping people associated with the businesses in town. But I think, if it was moved maybe 1 block off of Main Street, I think the safety would be paramount there. And, just from my own experience, that has proven to be a viable solution. So just a thought I've had when, I approach some friends of ours that ride a lot with families, and their main concern is the safety of their kids with traffic. And I think it's great to start the conversation about some type of business loop, but maybe just take the traffic aspect out of it, and that might make things a lot easier. So anyway.
I have a question, because in my mind, there's street biking, and then there's, which would, the hills and coming town to town, and then there's the mountain biking. Because I'm familiar with Bethlehem, New Hampshire. They have probably the past 10 years, developed a lot of mountain bike, and it's, as you say, parallel to Main Street, and it's revitalized a small town's Main Street. The owners or the drivers of this particular route own a brewery, and it's part of a chain. There are places, different businesses, and you get an influx of people that come in to do and it's an extensive amount of miles, I think, that they're able to loop onto, and it's been developed over a few years. But anyway, that's a
I think like gravel bikes, if you're familiar with those, they're kind of on the up and up now. I think given the opportunity for cyclists to choose to ride on the road, or on a machine groomed or flat smooth trail, on a gravel bike is very similar to a road bike, an on-road bike, except it's got, you know, the tires are a little bit more beefy, I guess, and you can, you know, ride on, like, you know, rail beds and stuff like that. The popularity of those has grown drastically, and, you know, mountain biking for my kids and the you know, other families that we ride with, you know, for us, we would love a place in town where we could go and just ride for half an hour or ride for an hour. We don't need a huge, massive trail network where, you know, it's nice that we have 20-something miles of trails in town. Even if we had a 2 or 3 mile loop, that would save us from having to drive to Franklin Falls or to Green Woodlands, or to, you know, Claremont, or there's other places that have these really nice facilities. And like you said, you know, some of these, you know, like struggling, I guess, you know, older kind of mill towns, they've been able to revitalize their downtown because they've seen that outdoor recreation is so important to people, you know, especially after COVID. You know, that, you know, it's a huge economic driver now, and it's really revitalized a lot of these places like Bethlehem or even Franklin or Claremont's got a huge program that they're trying to launch right now too, with some downhill stuff. And that's bringing people in. They need a place to stay. They want a place to eat. So it would certainly work well with the shoulder seasons too, because that's some of the favorite time for people to ride. So I agree that there needs to be something, you know, where cars and bikes can cohabitate, but you know, my thought was just maybe move it off of Main Street a little bit to keep the cost down. So.
Yeah, Russ, to elaborate on that, I'm assuming everybody on the committee is familiar already with the original thought about the bike loop, the business bike loop, but my understanding of it is that it would operate as a parallel on Barrett Road, so that it is parallel to Main Street, but off of Main Street, as a walking area, as a safe biking area, and potentially be extended all the way over so that it reaches over to County Road, I guess. So that people could then use that as a means, not just for recreation, which is important, but also, frankly, to do local business, to go to Hannaford, to go to the post office without feeling like you're going to get hit by a car by being on County Road. And that's a multi-purpose kind of use to it, as I understand it, that could incorporate a lot of those things and also connect to some of the other things you're talking about, the other trails and so forth.
I'd just like to hear from folks who haven't spoken up yet. If you can just, whatever, share your opinions or perspectives. We've got a few people who haven't spoken.
I mean, from my perspective, I'm mostly thinking of things from the outing club. One of the issues that we do have is we try and do with my after-school program, the Village, a lot of field trips. We're really trying to partner with a lot of organizations in town. And I can tell you that the feedback from parents on those field trips has been walking on Main Street is not thrilling to them. We often use Gould and we'll stay, you know, we try and stay off as much as possible on Main Street, but that has been an issue and feedback that we've received. I think the ability to have people get easier access down to Woodward Park would also be amazing. I think it's a resource, that and Knights Hill Nature Park, specifically Knights Hill Nature Park, a lot of people aren't even aware. And, you know, it's 120 acres of beautiful land that you can go and explore and walk, so for our pedestrians. So to the extent that we can incorporate, you know, an easier route to get people safely there and they're not crossing Main Street, that would be lovely. But yeah, you know, everything that you guys are saying sounds right on to me, so.
I think I'd like to see us look at some of the things we already have in addition to new things, and it may or may not exist, but is there an inventory of our sidewalks? Is there an assessment of the conditions? Is there already a list of things you can do to improve surfaces in various intersections? I think there's probably a lot of low-hanging fruit out there, things that could be done to improve things for children getting from the school to the college to the outing club down to the park, that are probably pretty achievable things that may not be held up by the Main Street project. And in fact, maybe not being able to work on Main Street initially could be a blessing, because it creates the opportunity to look at some smaller projects that may be immediately achievable politically and budgetary, just to make things a little safer for everybody. I'm not sure how many people have actually walked down the various sidewalks and looked at the condition of the surface and the curb and the intersection, and how many of us have almost been hit or almost hit somebody at an intersection. Just some awareness, I think, would be really nice. I like the idea of multi-use paths throughout town, and I think that should be part of maybe a larger plan, a concept. But in the immediate future, I think there are probably some very easy things that can be done, demonstration-wise even, to basically help everybody, those walking and those that are not walking. I think I'm as aware driving my car through Main Street as I am walking on the side of the street. It's probably more dangerous to drive down the road sometimes than it is to walk through some of these intersections. So even if I never get out of my car, I would appreciate safer options out there, especially at the intersections for everybody. So I think all of these things come together. Maybe we can help articulate that.
Other comments?
So, Grant, I agree with you that the interest is multi-use of our existing infrastructure and trying to expand upon that. Gravel bikes, hybrid bikes are very, very popular now, and I think there will be a transition to where people are going off-road. I used to somewhat with tongue-in-cheek say that, no, I want to stay on the road so that if I'm hurt, I'm accessible. It's way too dangerous to be out on mountain trails where no one can access you and help you. The groups that I ride with are starting to rethink that. It's safer on the mountain trails than on the paved roads. So there is that transition. I just need to bring a little bit of a historic perspective to this. Years ago, John McKenna looked at the town. You know, our town is transected by a power line, and he was very interested in establishing a trail that would go all the way from Exit 11 Andover Road to up to County Road. If you look at Google Earth, I mean, it's a straight line that transects the town that one way or another we ought to be able, as you say, get off of Main Street. Well, there's a heck of a path going out in the wilderness for our town that I would look at as a potential resource to get folks off of the Main Street but still be accessible. It goes right by the hospital.
Well, there are different layers of steps that can be taken to enhance the safety of walkers and pedestrians. And, you know, many towns have sort of initiated different types of approaches. So, for example, in Rochester, New Hampshire, they have a number of intersections that have the blinking yellow light for pedestrians, and it's a motion detection device. And there is one near Hilltop that goes to Hannaford's. I don't know the whole history behind that, but that's one type of intervention in terms of a traffic slowing mechanism. There are other things that can be done, such as not speed bumps, because I know that's a sensitive issue, but sort of temporary speed bumps. They're really kind of plastic, but they kind of serve the same function. You're not not changing the physical road. So there are investments that can be made that result in some traffic slowing mechanisms, signage, and various kinds of things. So it's not necessarily a multi-million-dollar infrastructure project to take some steps to accommodate, all modes of transportation. And that's another thing, that we should look at in terms of, as Ed said, is there low-hanging fruit in terms of projects that are achievable? And Bibi and I have had some discussion about the Capital Reserve Fund, and the Board of Selectmen have allocated funds for sidewalks and for road infrastructure, but those funds have not been expended. And I don't know the entire background about that, but we may have access to some of those funds, or to put it more succinctly, we can make a recommendation in terms of how those funds could be expended. And I would consider that relatively low-hanging fruit, i.e., if the assumption of the Capital Reserve Fund is not additional funds for maintenance as it is currently defined, road maintenance, but are additional funds for possibly addressing other needs, then maybe that's something we could look to.
The reserve account was started in 1996 for the purpose of installation of new sidewalks. So it's got available right now about $180,000. There was 120 that was appropriated at 2 years ago town meeting for work to be done on Main Street, and Bob's been putting off that work in anticipation of the water main project. So there's 120 that's been appropriated and not spent, and then a balance of another 180 in there. And the selectmen do have the option to expend those funds. It doesn't have to go to a town meeting vote.
I see.
Yeah.
And to the extent you have any insight into this, is the rationale for that fund to eventually address the Main Street sidewalk issue, or can it be used for other sidewalk projects?
I think it's for any and all sidewalk projects. It's funny you say that, because I haven't found the exact language that they used in 1996, and if anybody here was here in 1996 and can remember.
Please step forward.
Yeah, please step forward, and we can remember why this account was developed. That would be great. I don't know, Emily, if you remember, but anyway, I'm gonna reach out to Jim Perkins and go back into the archives and try to find some minutes or something along those lines as to really the purpose of it. But from what you and Lynn found, what Kim and Lynn found, when we were doing some research on all of our capital reserve accounts last year for our budget committee, that was what you guys pulled out of the town report at that point.
Right, we pulled out what town meeting voted, so if that's
Yeah.
what it said, that's what town meeting said.
Yeah, right.
So
It could be changed.
And it can be changed, but so it doesn't specify Main Street only, it's just says sidewalks.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So obviously, we want to follow up on this discussion
Yeah.
in the near future in terms of,
Yeah, because you might-
what are projects that
Yeah,
would garner support, and are there resources available
Yeah.
to do those projects, I guess, is a fundamental question.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, what Don said about we need to pursue other avenues of funding as an aggregate is also the case, I believe, yeah.
yeah.
In terms of grants for the town, I know, Chief Cobb does research, and the fire chief does research, and they get grants. And it's pretty much the responsibility of the departments to raise money through grants. Is that an accurate statement?
Oh, sorry. There you go.
And in fact, we just heard that the Housing Commission just got a $100,000 HOP grant, so that's really awesome. They've been working on that for a couple of years. So, yeah, so committees, department heads, whomever. Reach out, and you'll hear about various grants through your work. I mean, I know there's many other bicycle and pedestrian committees around the state and around the country. You'll hear about grants. So that would be your job to sit down. You don't have to be a professional grant writer to write them. We can help you in the office, but the selectmen would have to approve the funds if you get the grant, and you can certainly go that route. There are some really lucrative ones, as Don mentions. A lot of them just stay on the table because nobody's applied for them. But we've been especially the police department lately has been the big winner, although the Housing Commission, they might have just leaped ahead with that big one they just got, so.
I heard that today, too.
Many of the grants at the state or federal level require a municipality to contribute either a matching fund or personnel resources or something, expertise. So would that be an impediment for securing the grant from your point of view?
It really depends on how much the match would be and whether funds are available. And as far as if it can be in kind, Public Works can do a lot of the work. So that's where we get a lot of in kind. Don knows about this with our emergency management grants that we get. It's the in kind match that we do. It's not a cash match from the town.
Anything to add at this point, BB? Yeah. Okay.
No, it's been great conversation.
So I think we'll keep the meeting relatively brief this evening to ensure that the committee members return for the next meeting.
That's a good strategy.
And I would suggest our schedule is meeting every other month, and I just want to have a brief discussion on that in terms of frequency. I think there will be times when we're going to want to meet more frequently, but I also know several of you have travel plans in the next few weeks, so I was going to suggest, at least for our next meeting, that we meet in July at the same time, the Thursday, whatever this is. The same date in July. Do you know what that would be? I meant to look before I came. So.
Are you saying like the second Thursday in
July?
Yeah.
Would that?
July 11th?
Is that correct? The second Thursday, that's correct, yes.
Yeah.
July 11th, is that a date that will work for people on the committee? And I would just suggest that you note on your calendar that we'll be meeting every other month, and we may make exceptions to that, but just to put it in your calendar so that if at all possible you don't have schedule conflicts. We will certainly be sending out an invitation, for our next meeting. And I hope that all committee members will be inclined to give input into the creation of the agenda. If there are particular issues or concerns you have, please forward them to me or to Emily, because I certainly want this to be a collaborative effort in terms of what we choose to discuss and how we move forward. So.
Just a heads up, after July 11th, the next, if you decide to go into September and the second Thursday, Selectmen meet on the second and the fourth Thursdays. We're meeting Wednesdays for the summer, but in the fall we go back to Thursday. So just a heads up, July 11th is fine. At that meeting, you might want to say, we're going to do the first Thursday or the third, something like that.
Okay, yeah.
If you want to use this
or
space.
we can use a different.
Or you could use the Sid Crook. Huh?
Yeah, we can use a different venue.
Yeah.
That will be at the discretion of the committee, whether you want to. because I presume that the Board of Selectmen would have first choice on this, on the premises.
They always have first choice.
Our meetings are scheduled already.
Puts a little stress on me.
Okay, I just thought I'd inquire. Okay, without further ado, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. And second?
Second.
Thanks for taking your time this evening.